Hey, it's Chuck. The march to Atlanta has begun. We go over everything that happened in spring practice. Plus, the NFL media has misrepresented Marvin in a press conference that wasn't. And I got a message for them. Let's get it. And I don't think he's going to throw the ball as much as he thinks he's going to throw the ball now that Chip Kelly's on board. And I'm happy about that. More quarterback. The truth is Ryan Day has made a change philosophically, but it's none of those. You all know who wins. LSU is the drunkest fan base in the country. And welcome in. The new season begins, and we can officially wipe the nasty taste out of our mouth. We don't need to rely anymore on off-season news, coaching, whatever, to get our juices flowing. It's time. We got dudes in uniform. We got plays getting made in the next week and a half. Today we saw some highlights from running backs, quarterbacks. We got a press conference from Chip Kelly and Ryan Day to go over. But first, there's something that's been irking me, and maybe you too. And unless you don't follow the news, you've undoubtedly heard that Marvin Harrison Jr. essentially flaked on a press conference at the Combine. Now, this story was framed as if Marvin had a scheduled time, committed to it, and then just no-showed, left everybody hanging. Now, Marv has shown us in the time that we've known Marv how responsible he is, how respectful he is. Not only is he an all-time great Buckeye on the field, but it's somehow probably even less argumentative to say he's an all-time great Buckeye off the field. We're talking about a kid with no ego. Amazingly, the son of a Hall of Famer with every gift in the world who would rather spend his Saturday night in the Woody Hayes with low lights working on the Monarch machine by himself. Did it so much that they had to tell Marvin, listen, you need to have somebody in here with you, okay? You're here too much by yourself. And he did it, and he kept going. And that's how he spends his spare time. I've not met Marvin personally. I've not been in the same room as Marv. But I've talked to a lot of people who have, and we've seen a lot of statements from people who have and characterizations of Marv the person. And every single one comes back about what a crazy, nice gentleman he is. He's just a shy, sweet, young dude. And thinking of him big-timing anybody is absolutely ridiculous. He's definitely not someone that would be irresponsible, and he's definitely not someone that would be rude. So when you saw that headline, you may have known exactly what happened, or you may have said, that doesn't seem like Marv. And there's a reason that doesn't seem like Marv, because it's not true. So I'm going to clarify it, because I don't care if 2 people or 50 people or 100 people watch this. I'm going to say my piece when you go after a 22-year-old kid who did absolutely nothing wrong. So every website and every newspaper ran this headline. Adam Schefter ran this headline. Marvin Harrison Jr. abruptly no shows for the NFL Combine press. It was everywhere. The story was total garbage. Now, if someone wants to say Marvin did not hold a press conference, that's a fact. Feel free to say it. Feel free to take of it what you will. But Caleb Williams, who will probably go number 1, is the type of guy that has a lot of people questioning things about him. Caleb Williams didn't do any of his medical. He didn't do anything at all. This has a lot of the media types all worked up because he didn't participate in their thing. This is their opportunity to see him, talk to him, etc. And people are looking at this situation and now trying to somehow lump Marvin in with this. Look at these selfish guys. Like, listen, Marvin is nowhere, and he's nothing like Caleb Williams, for one. Okay? There's no questions about Marvin. But to try to lump him in with Caleb Williams because Caleb Williams didn't participate in anything, including medical, is absurd. I really wanted Marvin to participate in the Combine because I wanted to go watch him selfishly just smoke these guys, but he's got nothing to gain from it. We all know he's going top 5. Frankly, Caleb Williams doesn't have anything to gain from it either. So these guys just sound really bitter at this point. Anyway, to attempt to frame this Marvin non-story as if he had a scheduled press conference and had everyone waiting on him, then just didn't come as flat out wrong. It's correct that Marvin did have a scheduled press time because every single Combine participant has a scheduled press time. If anyone's not familiar with how this works, every year at the Combine, there's a big media room and a podium up front. The press sits there in the conference room, and the players just cycle through all day long. Every dude's got a little time slot. Now, the Combine goes on for more than half a week, and it's broken up in position groups as to what day you're going to be there. That's the day you're going to be working out, and that's the day you're going to do your little press junket, your little 15 minutes with them. So, as we know, the media who wrote these garbage stories knew that Marv didn't participate in any on-field work. Marv wasn't even in Indianapolis the days that the wide receivers were doing their on-field work because Marv came in Thursday, day 1. He did his measurements. Then he met with the brass of several franchises. Then he went home. Wide receivers weren't working out till Saturday. This is when Marv's scheduled 15 minutes time with them in the rotation would have been. Well, was he supposed to stick around from Thursday to Saturday to do this little 15-minute monkey session with these idiots? As luck would have it, I just did a story last week about what happens in this little NFL press conference room. So Buckeye linebacker and combine participant Steel Chambers stopped in that room for his 15 minutes, and he stopped the press conference maybe 3 minutes in, and he says to the guys, listen, I want to ask you guys a question instead. And Steel continues to ask them, what 4 animals would you take into war if you could pick any 4 animals and why? Now, you get 4 animals, you got to come to war with me and my 4 animals. Steel chose an elephant, a tiger, a hippo, and a bear, grizzly or polar, depending on the climate, and I appreciated him for making that bear comfortable as they went to war. Of course, I couldn't miss the opportunity, and I chose to go in mounted on horseback and bring 3 animals with me. And I think I just broke the game. Get that message to Steele. I think I outsmarted the game. But anyway, the point is, this is a super unserious, ridiculous format where these dudes are just playing patty cake with these guys. And it's basically just a throw-in interview to ask them a couple goofy questions and get their personality. Other highlights of this very serious format that our diva wide receiver missed. Texas Tech defensive back Tyler Owens, he doesn't believe in other planets. Illinois tight end Tip Riemann, he went over his theory on birds, specifically that birds aren't real. He believes they're created by the government as spy technology, and they recharge when they're sitting on wires. So that's the type of crap we're dealing with, that Marvin was supposedly supposed to stick around for 3 days when he wasn't participating to go do 15 minutes of this. Wait around for that, okay? Now, I just told you that Marvin was in and out on Thursday, and the wide receivers went Saturday. So how was the NFL reporting machine coming to the conclusion that Marvin Harrison Jr. abruptly stood everybody up? Unsurprisingly, it seems to be the incompetence of one single employee, in my estimation, because the NFL lackey that communicates from the players to the press in that room came in and said Marv won't be available, right as his session was about to start. He gave no reason why. So even though the NFL knew that Marvin was gone, because the NFL arranged the early weigh-in slot for Marvin on Thursday, along with the meetings, presumably, like they do for all non-participating guys that come to the combine to interview and take their height and weight, the NFL Draft Countdown, Shane Hallman says, Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't show up to a scheduled press conference at the combine yesterday. Combine officials shrugged and acted like they didn't know where he was and what was happening. What baffles me is they knew what was going on and they knew he wasn't going to be there. They weighed MHJ early so he could leave the combine since he wasn't working out. Why not cancel the press conference? Why act like you didn't know where he was? Well, Shane, I can't say definitively, but I'm going to speculate here that it was just an error by one employee. But I can speculate because I'm John Q. football fan, and as John Q. football fan, I don't have to practice journalistic integrity. I also don't have the resources and contacts to send a text message to someone and say, hey, what's the real story behind why Marvin isn't here? Now, I know who does have those resources and contacts. Every single one of those grown men in that room with their little recorders and their laptops that are playing patty cake with the prospects all week. Those guys sure have those numbers to send out that text and verify, why wasn't Marvin here? They definitely have it. And they probably could have just asked someone right outside the door when they walked out to get their next bag of Cheetos. They sit in that room all day. Now, Marvin gave them 15 minutes of time off, so I'm sure they went out and got a little air. They could have asked anybody. They could have sent a message to anybody, but they didn't do that. Instead, they all chose to write these stories with salacious headlines framed as though Marvin Harrison called a big press conference. They all got in their cars and drove to that press conference to hear Marvin Harrison talk, ask him a bunch of super serious questions, definitely not about animals or his favorite conspiracy theory, and Marvin Harrison just didn't show, didn't bother to call, made him wait for 45 minutes in the rain. That's how they framed this story. Now, we know by the time that they ran these stories, they had every opportunity to get the facts of what actually happened here, but they chose not to, because this is way more interesting, and this seems really out of character for Marvin, that it almost seems like something must not be right. So it really sucks people in, and it's a headline that generates a lot of interest. And whether it's truth or not doesn't matter. That's not the point. But the sad part is that a very small percentage of people are actually going to know what went on here. They're just going to read that headline, not even read the story. They're going to read that headline, judge Marvin, go on about their day. And 5 years from now, when Marvin Harrison's name comes up, they're going to recall this memory of, oh, yeah, he's one of those guys, one of those jerk diva wide receivers. And that irritates the hell out of me. It really does, because Marv isn't a nonsense guy, and he damn sure isn't a disrespectful guy. So he declined the invitation to stick around for 3 days to participate in this goofy show here, right? Because that's what it is. It's a goofy show. Because while he is an unbelievable prospect, he's not the easiest guy to write about, okay? Despite having a Hall of Fame dad, he's a shy guy, somewhat boring guy, right? Because he just does everything right. And I'll be totally honest. If this was someone else, maybe even another Buckeye, I don't think I'd be so fired up about it. But I've seen people the last month try to take anything they can to try to knock Marvin down because they just can't seem to get over the fact that the dude really is that good on and off the field. And it's pathetic and it's disgusting. He's a perfect gentleman. He always has been. And he outworked every single wide receiver in that draft. Outworked them, and he probably didn't need to. And it's very rare. It is very rare to find a guy with this kind of mix of dedication and these kind of physical gifts. And that's why he's the most can't-miss wide receiver prospect I've ever seen. So, to the fourth and fifth-rate reporters who were in that room and every editor who ran those ridiculous, misleading headlines, you did wrong. You should run your corrections and make them just as big as those cover pieces, but you won't. You're hacks, and you will never stand out in your field the way that this young man will. And on behalf of Buckeyes everywhere, you can kindly pound salt. That gets me really fired up, guys. I'm telling you, man. I don't know if you've seen it, but for the last month, I have just seen nonstop. What angle can we go at to try to say that this guy really isn't the best wide receiver? That this guy's better than him, that guy's better than him. Look at this production here. I mean, it's just insane. It's as if you folks just can't accept that what you're seeing is actually real. Yes, he is that big. He is that fast. He does have that insane knack to get his feet in bounds. He does catch every ball his way. His catch radius is bigger than anybody else's, and he's that great off the field. Oh, and he outworks everybody on the team, and he did that at Ohio State. He outworked everybody. I mean, I'm telling you, we would see the beat reporters doing their little pieces on the field at the Woody, and everybody would be gone except the guy with the vacuum and Marvin on the Monarch machine. And it is so impressive. It really is. When you're coming from the background that he's coming from, you could imagine the kind of ego that you would develop as a kid, just naturally. We've seen it 1,000 times. He got none of it. He's an absolute dream. He was probably just a total dream to coach. He's a dream to root for. And they just can't seem to get over the fact that he's just that good. And it bothers me, man. It really bothers me. And they're trying to lump him in with Caleb Williams. Like, get out of town, dude. These are not anywhere near the same type of fella. And I don't like Caleb Williams. I really don't. And I think the Bears are total idiots if they turn the page on Justin Fields and go after Caleb Williams. I mean, it would be a total Bears move. And I really hope that Justin lands somewhere that he has a shot, because I think he can be a very, very good NFL quarterback. Not going to be CJ, but he can be good. So, spring ball, guys. 15 total practices. We get to see new faces suited up in the scarlet and gray. We get to see who's wearing what numbers. Get to see how the coaches are lining up the guys. New rosters updated, new heights and weights. We get to hear from some of the coaches and all that. It's important to note we saw a smidge, right? And most of it, as far as who's lining up where, what position battles, we've been talking about all off season in the little limited pieces that we're seeing so far in practice 1 and practice 2. At this point, it means next to nothing. But we're going to talk about it because we've had nothing but non-football stuff to talk about, off-season stuff, and we actually got a little bit of football. So we're going to talk about it all, but we're going to start with Chip Kelly. So Chip Kelly had a press conference, first time to answer questions to the media since he's been around now for 3 weeks. finally get to hear from him. I follow a ton of college football like you do, and I don't follow the part in other programs as to how much media access the fans and the beat gets to the coaching staff and the players. So I have nothing to compare how Ohio State does it. If you do, I would love to hear this, right? I've always been curious about this because I find it really odd and obnoxious, to be quite honest, that the biggest state university with what Chip Kelly is probably the number 2 highest paid employee in the state of Ohio now, and we can't get a statement out of him for 3 weeks. I just want to hear from the guys. I mean, these are state employees, right? I don't think it's too much to ask. 3 weeks till we hear from him. I want to hear from Chip. All right, I'm being selfish. I get it, but I want to hear from him. So every time I say something like that, somebody gets in the comments and gets mad at me and says, what do you want him wasting his time on talking? You want him to win or you want him to talk to you? Well, listen, I think he can handle 20 minutes of talking to the press and still go about his day without screwing anything up. I don't know. I just think he's capable of doing that. So what did Chip have to say? A lot, but not a lot with a ton of substance, other than a few things. There was nothing really substantial about the nuts and bolts of the offense. It was a lot of, we're going to work together, Ryan and I. There's a whole lot of team atmosphere. His demeanor was excellent. You follow college football for a long time, and you remember what Chip was like in the beginning of his career when he burst onto the scene as an offensive coordinator under Mike Bellotti at Oregon. Bellotti steps aside, big smile, happy-go-lucky guy. And admittedly, I don't follow a lot of NFL, and even less as I get older because I just don't like it as much anywhere near as college football, and I'd rather spend that time on anything college football than even exciting NFL things other than the Cleveland Browns, who I follow very closely. But outside of them, I just don't get into anything else with it. So I didn't follow him much in the NFL, speaking of Chip. But as he came back to college, it didn't take long before I realized this is not the same kind of guy when he was at UCLA. He just seemed different than he had seemed at Oregon to me. He was always kind of curmudgeon-y, kind of finicky, but always had that jovial part of his personality, and he was funny. And I hadn't seen it in a long time. And I think the most poignant thing he discussed yesterday was how unhappy he was towards the end there of being a head coach at UCLA. And he just wanted to be happy. He talked about being unhappy for quite a while. He quoted John Lennon, something about, what he wanted to be when he grew up. He wanted to be happy. And, I totally understand where he's coming from. We're talking about a guy who's made plenty of money. He wanted to go be the offensive coordinator for Seattle. He didn't get that job. To go work for, with your buddy, doing what he loves to do, which is coach a position. He mentioned that several times. It had been so long since he actually coached a position, and he just wanted to coach football. And it just really comes off that this is a guy, like you'd always suspect, that just loves offense. He thinks about offense all day, and he wants to go coach offense. And he kind of made that very obvious on the field when he said to Caleb Downs, "Boy, you'd be great on offense." And the guy just wants to score points. I mean, it's just a dream, honestly. He talked about Ryan Day a lot, and he discussed about Ryan Day. He said that he knew him since he was a little kid playing Little League. Now, I had known that he knew him in high school. They went to the same high school. Obviously, Chip's older, but he had recruited him from high school to college. I knew all that. I did not know that he knew him since he was a little kid. And one of the things he said a couple times was how competitive Ryan Day is. So that was awesome to hear. We've obviously seen a few snippets of Ryan Day's nasty competitiveness, and it's awesome to see when it comes out. He does a good job of hiding it from us, but it's fun to hear somebody who's known him since he was a child talk about how competitive he was. And we talk about my theory on a head coach, when I trust the head coach, is when he hires an assistant of any position, I just want him to get his first pick. I don't try to weigh in like, I think you should go get this guy or that guy or this style of guy or that style guy. I want that head coach to get his first pick. So I was happy when he got Bill O'Brien, even though I don't like Bill O'Brien, because it was his first pick at the time. I think it's all safe to say, we can all say that it's safe to assume that Chip Kelly was really his first pick. He just didn't think that was a viable option as Chip was interviewing in Seattle. So how could this have gone any better for us in an off season when he's given up play calling to stumble into a guy he's so comfortable with? And that is the thing that really showed in Ryan Day's press conference, is just how comfortable he is in this transition. There's no nerves about it. He trusts 100% that Chip Kelly is going to do things properly in the way he wants it done, and also add an incredible amount of stuff. And he seems perfectly okay to just go ahead and do your thing, Chip. And that's exactly the perfect situation for him, that there's not going to be any anxiety or concern about the offense while he takes a step back from that and starts to be the guy who's all around in every position group, in every area of the team, equal amount of time. And man, what a fantastic situation to be in as he does this for the first season. And a fantastic situation with everything else that's happened in the offseason. This is just a convergence of the absolute perfect scenario. And to think that the Buckeyes aren't the favorites for the national championship, I don't care what the odds say. I think by the time the season starts, they will be the favorites for the national championship. I don't know how anybody could look at all this going on and not think so. So, I mean, if you're saying Carson Beck is the difference between the Buckeyes and the Georgia Bulldogs over who's the favorite, which is some of the argument I hear, I think I've made that argument in the past. That was before the Chip Kelly stuff, and that was before this. And this is too much. The Buckeyes are now the favorites to win the national championship, and I'm all in on that. I'm all in on that. The march to Atlanta begins, and we're going to get there. And I fully believe this team is going to cash in, and the Buckeyes are not just set up for this season to be successful. Now, they lose a lot of talent next season, but the moves they've made, Nick Saban's retirement, and the momentum we're getting in some different little pockets of recruiting, the 5-star DBs from the South, these massive DBs, we're talking just insane recruits that, we talk Naeem Offord out of Birmingham, guys that never would have even really considered Ohio State. Add that along with Sam Petito, who's got his hooks in everywhere down there, from Louisiana, at Alabama for the last 8 years, running recruiting. And Ryan Day has got the school position, the program position to not just win a national championship, but to be a consistent national championship, not just contender, but odds-on contender. And I really think we're walking into that. I made a tweet to that effect yesterday, and boy, it got a lot of traction, and I got a lot of hate. They just don't know, man. They're not paying attention. And a lot of schools, so, I got to post a lot of this stuff on TikTok that I do. And I'm telling you guys, the fan bases around the country, a lot of them, they think that Ohio State is kind of a joke. And obviously they're clueless. We know that. But it really permeates throughout the country. And they're in for it, man. I just throw my hands, okay, okay. You're really in for it. You don't follow recruiting. You clearly don't know what's really going on. This is maybe the most talented roster in the country. If not, it's 1B to Georgia's 1A. And now the coaching staff is situated, and it's looking great. So back to spring practice. Sorry for my little divergence there. We all know sometimes when the student becomes the boss, even if it's in a voluntary situation, like this situation is with Chip and Ryan, that things can start out good, and then there can be some contentious moments. That was my biggest concern with this situation with Chip Kelly coming in. If there was a concern, if you said, Chuck, one concern, I would say it would be that. I've been in this situation before, and at some point it can come up where it's just not peaches and cream all the time. At some point it can come up where that little situation rears its ugly head. And I thought that way until I heard Chip say yesterday that they've known each other since Ryan was a little kid. Now that situation, that's more like family, man. That's like, okay, we can get through anything. And I no longer have that slight concern that I had. And it wasn't even a big concern. It was just something that if you said you got to pick one thing to be concerned about, that's what it would have been. But Chip didn't really give us anything definitive on any nuts and bolts. A lot of it was very speaking in generalized terms. He didn't specify whether he would coach from the box or on the field. He gave his opinion on both, and he does like both, and he wishes he could do both and have a zip line from the press box down to the sideline. He gave an example of an advantage coaching on the sideline when Ryan Day got hurt. He took a shot one time, and it affected the next play call, and he wouldn't have known that if he was up in the box, but he was on field, so he could see that he was hurting. So there are pluses and minuses on both. I personally I think an offensive play caller should be in the box, particularly a guy who's as brilliant as Chip Kelly, just to be able to see everything. Tough to kind of gather everything that's going on from that view on the field, to me. I think that's the best way to go about it. And we talk about, understanding things like the quarterback taking a big shot. I don't know. There's headsets, right? I mean, we can get around that, but I think he should be in the box. Obviously, he knows what's best for him. I don't doubt Chip Kelly's ability to call the offensive plays. So he wants to be on the sidelines, whatever. But not a lot of interesting stuff in that department. He did say one really interesting thing that I want to hit at the end here. But on the field, on the practice field, Chip came up to Caleb Downs, like I said, and said, boy, what I could do with you on offense. They were laughing together. And to see those two together, Caleb Downs and Chip Kelly in the scarlet and gray, was quite a sight and definitely not something we were expecting. What a blessing. How lucky could we be here? He told us to check out Caleb Downs' high school tape on offense. Of course, I know that the people watching this already did that a couple cycles ago. But it is fun tape if you want to rewatch it. There's so much money to be made in the secondary now with dudes like Caleb Downs and Naeem Offord and Devin Sanchez, these big athletes that are just like the best athlete on the team that formerly 10 years ago, 15 years ago would have been playing wide receiver, have now moved into the secondary. And these secondaries just keep getting better and better. I mean, it is something to see Caleb out there. I don't think I realized quite how tall he was. He's pretty damn long. And he's so beefy that I just kind of thought he was maybe a little bit shorter, a little bit more compact. He's not. He's just that tall and that beefy. And what an athlete. Let's go over some roster stuff. So, Jeremiah Smith. There was a picture floating around yesterday of Jeremiah. He also made an excellent catch on a couple of the routes we got to see. Little 15-yard out, running fast, down, shoelace catch, looking this way. It was really smooth. It was really great. I don't know if it's even worth talking about this guy because it's like we all know he's just going to be so fantastic. It's just almost pointless to even go over it. Yes, Jeremiah Smith did Jeremiah Smith stuff, but he's going to wear number 4, as he did in high school. One of our guys here in the comments, Mello, called him Optimus Prime. I like that. I'm going to steal it, playing off Calvin Johnson's Megatron, because there's no wide receiver I've seen that it looks so physically dominant and can actually back it up. It's Calvin Johnson. I mean, I think that these two are going to be compared their whole careers. So we're going to go with Optimus Prime. Let's do it. He's an absolute unit. And if you were to say that was a 5-star defensive end, when I look at that picture, I would believe you. That's kind of what 5-star defensive ends look. That's what Jadeveon Clowney looked like when he was maybe a junior in high school. He got a little bit bigger than that, but that's what he looks like. The guy's ridiculous. He's an absolute unit, and I was listening yesterday to all the beat guys and listening to these guys, each one of them, just the constant wow on everybody's face when they see the guy. I can't wait to see him in person. I can't wait to see him on the field. It's going to be so fun. Even on plays where he doesn't get the ball, I want to see him manhandling DBs. I just cannot wait for this kid. But going to be fantastic. So he's wearing number 4. I wouldn't change a thing. He looked great in 4 in high school. Julian Sain is wearing number 10. I like a quarterback in 10. Great quarterback number. Aaron Nolan's going to wear 12. But James Peoples, running back, thighs like Barry Sanders, is going to wear number 20. I think that's a good move by him. I think it's a good move. Caleb Downs is going to wear number 2. Quinchon's going to wear number 1. And Will Howard will stick with 18, as he did wear at Kansas State. So plenty of clips have been put out by members of the press today. They were allowed to come in for about 45 minutes. Several of them recorded some things, and we saw a handful of balls from the quarterbacks. Not much, but I think the most interesting thing we can garner from watching that is just kind of watching how they physically stack up to each other, throwing motions compared against each other, any wasted movement, etc. Will Howard looks the part, man. He is humongous. I mean, this dude is just a unit. And he looks incredibly confident already, just smooth in his demeanor. There's nothing shaking this dude. He throws a really nice looking ball, as we know. He just looks like he's in total control of his body, no wasted movement. Got some good zip on the ball. And he's throwing a 15-yard out, so he's zipping the ball. Aaron Nolan is the only one we didn't get to see put any zip on the ball. He was throwing he was dropping some wheel routes in the bucket, about 20-yard wheel routes. But they look beautiful. The touch was fantastic, and he is a smooth-looking dude. I mean, everything is just so fluid with Aaron Nolan. And we saw that in his high school footage, so nothing new there. But he did stand out standing next to Julian Sayin, who is listed at 6'1". Now, Air's listed at 6'2", and sometimes 6'2.5". Julian Sayin's listed at 6'1". Somebody's fibbing, because that's not an inch difference between those two. Julian is definitely smaller. He's a smaller dude. Lincoln Kindholz is physically the quarterback a lot of people would draw up in their head. The dude is now a little bit thicker, and he looks like a unit. And we know he's a hell of an athlete. He's tall enough, nice, long, thick legs. Dude just looks like a unit. When he talks, he sounds like he's 18 years old. You're going to say because he is. And it's true, but we're used to hearing Ryan Day's guys sound like they're 10 years older than they are. So when you hear an actual 18-year-old talk in a press conference at Ohio State, it's kind of jarring to me. He does sound very young. As far as how far Lincoln has to go, I think he has a long way to go. And I don't know if he'll ever be that guy at Ohio State. But he's a hell of a kid, and he's a damn good option to have in your quarterback room. And he's very self-aware. They were asking him some questions the other day about, kind of talking about transfers and such. And he just kind of reminded him, this is my first spring. I mean, he's very self-aware. He knows he's not the guy now, and he's not really anywhere near involved in that competition to be the starter, which is good. I love self-awareness. He knows it's a long way off for him, and he's got a great attitude. Devin Brown. Now, the coaches said he's been great so far this spring, taking on some more of a leadership role. That's awesome. I made a video about him yesterday, and I highlighted all the things I love about Devin. Ryan Day's gone out of his way to say good things about Devin, the teammate. And something popped off to me yesterday as I was watching Devin, and I noticed that I had never really put this thought together when watching Devin, but it just kind of clicked. Devin is frantic. Every time I see him on the field, running, passing, in practice reps, the guy just looks frantic. And it's just his style, man. I don't understand what it is about him that I think he would be. I think it would suit him well if he adopted a little more of a Will Howard's kind of just relax a little bit. Everything looks just rushed, hurried, and frantic. And it just clicked to me when I saw that yesterday that, man, that is what it is on the field, even when he's running. I mean, his cuts aren't decisive. He just looks frantic. And I think he would be well suited to try to tone that down. But I'm rooting for Devin, not to beat out Will Howard, but I'm rooting for him as a dude, as a player, because I really like him. And I don't know, maybe he can chill out just a little bit. Julian Sayin, this guy, man, I think he is. I think he's excellent. He threw the best looking ball yesterday. His release is compact. His ball has more zip than anybody else, in my opinion. And again, we only saw a couple balls, and the angle we got was not the best angle to judge these type of things. So I'm going to speak in big sweeping generalities off of a couple of reps, because that's what we do in spring practice. And I think that Julian Sayin has the most zip on that ball. But Julian is small. Julian needs to put on some weight, man. He's got a ways to go. He's got to physically develop a little more. And we know he's small. And as I said the other day, if he was big like Dylan Raiola, the whole country would have known who he was because he is that good of a quarterback. But he's small, so you don't get the kind of publicity when you're his size. But man, he's got to put on some beef because he looks kind of frail. He doesn't look like a guy that could make it through a Big Ten season. And he's got plenty of time to do that, so that's fine. But he looks crisp. His ball's pretty. The accuracy is as advertised. It just looks easy for him. It looks so much easier for him. You see Devin sailing a ball. Everybody else is kind of misplaced on a 15-yard out, which it's a pretty long throw, on a rope. And Julian's just bang, bang, bang. The dude's legit. But he's definitely nowhere near the size or physical development of Aaron Nolan and Lincoln Kienholz. Nowhere near. So that really popped out to me as far as Julian. And that's all we got for the quarterback reps. So Will Howard, presumed starter, cool customer. I didn't start the show until after Will Howard was at Ohio State. And I never really got a chance to weigh in much on him, but maybe like my first video or so. But I think Will Howard is very underrated. I thought that before he ever hit the transfer portal when he was at Kansas State. I didn't like the fact that the fans were kind of clamoring for Avery Johnson. I've since talked to a lot of them and kind of got their perspective on it. But I don't understand what people were talking about when they were trying to say that this wasn't an upgrade over Kyle McCord. I talked to a lot of Michigan folks about it, and they would argue that the stats are essentially the same. And that's correct. I mean, aside from the extra rushing yards and touchdowns that Will Howard had. But, I mean, we're talking about a guy with Kansas State level talent. And it goes beyond that. It goes beyond just being Kansas State level talent. But you have to factor in the competition. That's mid-level talent in the Big 12. So 50% of their games, they're going against guys. They're not just mid-level talent, but they're going against guys that are much better than them. You know, the Texas and Oklahoma's. And, I mean, there's talent. Oklahoma State. These are talented defensive backs that they've got down there. That's no joke. Ton of them. I mean, Texas supplies a boatload of talented defensive backs in the Big 12. And I think that the numbers that he put up at K-State are pretty doggone impressive. Now, Kyle McCord, would he have done that at Kansas State? I don't think so. I don't think he's anywhere near as good as Will Howard. That's my opinion. And I think that the market showed us that. Will Howard hit the market, and he got interest from Ohio State and USC. Kyle McCord ended up at Syracuse. We're not coaches, but we know what they look for, and I think it's pretty safe to assume the market told us everything we need to know. Will Howard is considerably better. The people that I talked to from Kansas State, when we signed him, I reached out to, on Twitter, to maybe 7 or 8 Kansas State folks, heard back from most of them, and what they had to say was everything we've always heard about him. Great leader, you'll be proud of him running your team. You know, essentially he'll make you proud. But they were ready for Avery Johnson, and a lot of people knocked Will Howard for that, getting benched for a freshman. Well, it's a little different. Avery Johnson is the best recruit they've ever signed in the history of Kansas State, and he's also from Kansas. So you got the best guy they've ever had to school, in-state hero. I mean, we know how it goes. We've been through this with the hometown boys, particularly when, you know, your guy might be struggling. And Will Howard did have, you know, a little bit of a section in that season where he was throwing a couple picks. And I think the game before they brought in Avery Johnson, he maybe threw 4 picks. But I think he was a little injured. I don't know. I didn't get a whole lot into it because it's nonsense. They wanted Avery Johnson. I get it. I mean, I've been there. I've felt that way with hometown guys before over maybe someone who was proven, who I wasn't totally happy with, that was starting. So I think it worked out best for us. I hope it works out good for them. I respect them as a program, and I got to tell you, their fans are incredibly nice, far nicer than we are, and really good folks, kind of like Nebraska fans, not surprisingly. That little region's just full of nice people. So I think Will Howard is going to be excellent and the perfect quarterback to start this first season in this marriage between Chip and Ryan. I think he's the perfect guy. Now, we saw a little bit of the running backs, all 5 of them. The updated roster came out, and we're talking Travian, Dallin, James Peoples, and Sam Williams-Dixon are are like they were made in a lab, the same size. 5'10", 5'11", 200 something. It's pretty hilarious. Ohio State is definitely at the level where they can be extremely selective, and they definitely got a type. They got a type. Now, Quinshawn, a little bit bigger at 6 foot 220, and he runs a little bit bigger than these guys too. But we got to see them one after the next, take a handoff, make one cut, and then accelerate as fast as they can. And when we're judging just physical capability, seeing them side by side is very revealing. And the one thing that I think stood out to me, and probably you guys too, if you watch what I'm talking about, is how incredibly gifted Travion is. When you see it next to his peers, it even pops more than it pops on the field. When you just see them doing the same thing, it's so different. I mean, nobody looks like this guy. It's just different. He just hits this zoom button, and just the acceleration is just astonishing. Best in college football as far as acceleration out of a cut. And when he gets to the NFL, he'll be one of the best in the NFL. Top 5 as far as acceleration out of a cut. It's just instant 0 to top speed. It's crazy. Quinshawn, he's got some quicks, not a blow you away type kind of quicks or shiftiness, but good enough. And we know his bread and butter is with contact. And it's good that he has a guy like Travion splitting carries, and Dallin Hayden, who I think is going to play plenty this season. Now, Dallin has always looked to me like a guy without a lot of wiggle, without a ton of speed, without a ton of size, but he does everything good, and he's very effective. A lot of folks were calling for him last year, and I was one of them. But not because he's something super special to me, but because he just always gets the job done. And I think a lot of the clamoring for Dallin Hayden kind of took on a life of its own, and almost like as if he was, some great running back that they had riding the pine for this red shirt. I've never had the impression that he's a great running back. I think he's a very good running back, and he's effective, and I think he'll play a lot this year. Freshman Sam Williams-Dixon, supposedly more of a scat back, is what we've heard. Now, I think what stood out to me about Sam Williams-Dixon is I expected a little more scat out of that guy that they're calling a scat back. Admittedly, I wasn't very excited about him when he was coming in. He's an Ohio guy, which I love, bring in more Ohio guys, but there was nothing that got my juices flowing from his tape or his measurables. And he's not incredibly physically gifted, particularly stacked up to these guys, and it shows. But James Peoples, outside of Trey, James Peoples looks to me the most physically gifted of that unit. He's got it all. And he's got the speed, and he hits that burst faster. He looks twitchier. He's a little different. And to me, he stands out as the most physically gifted in that aspect. And it was really, really exciting to see, because we'd heard that, they're really high on him and potentially high on him getting a lot of playing time. So I think that we may be looking at a substantial amount of playing time for James Peoples once he gets caught up on pass pro, because this dude's going to be able to physically handle it, and he's definitely got the talent to do it. So it might not come early, but he's going to get some good playing time this year, I think, along with Dallin Hayden. And I think we're going to have a really nice rotation. Now, if there's one room where I think we're going to see as much rotation as they're advertising that we're going to see, because they've acknowledged that it's a long season and that they need to be playing more guys and rotating more, I think that old habits die hard. And in a lot of those cases, they're going to revert back to those old habits, particularly if they can't get off to fast starts. Now, running back is not that area. I think we're going to see more rotation in that running back room than we may see in a lot of the other units. So, what else do we got here? O-line. Let's talk O-line. So, I didn't get anything on corners. I didn't get anything on actually the whole secondary other than Caleb Downs is awesome. I didn't get much on wide receivers. I don't know if you guys got anything on wide receivers. I didn't hear a whole lot about wide receivers yesterday. And just a snippet on linebackers and nothing at all really on defensive line. Didn't see any clips of defensive line. So we got some offensive line news here. We didn't see anything. So they came out with the first team offensive line for day one. that was Josh Simmons, left tackle, Donovan Jackson at left guard, of course. Carson Hinsman was still at center. Luke Montgomery at right guard, and Josh Fryer was still at right tackle. So the new guy in that unit is Luke Montgomery at right guard. I kind of thought Luke might be getting more of a shot at tackle, but good enough at guard. I'd like to see him on the field. I think he's got the chance to be that dude. I really do. And if they don't think he can play tackle, I think they think he has a shot, but he'll be better suited at guard. That's fine. I want to see Luke on the field. I think Luke's nasty. I think he's got what it takes. I think he's smart. When I listen to him talk, he's self-aware. And I really, really like Luke. I like Tegra Shaballah too. Josh Fryer still at right tackle. I don't know if he's going to be able to hold off Tegra Shaballah, but we know that Josh Fryer is a vet. He's got a lot of experience now, and he is a good pass blocker. But he has some struggles. Tegra, we're talking about top 50 recruit now. Tegra's got some talent. We know that. Have they developed him enough? Is he ready to go? We'll see. Can't wait to see. I don't think that Carson Hinsman being at center means anything at all, as today. And I do think that we're going to end up seeing Seth McLaughlin in that role. But I'm rooting for Carson. Carson's our guy. He chose us out of high school. So I appreciate that. And second team, offensive line, they lined up Zen Mikulski at left tackle, Austin Searvold at left guard, Seth McLaughlin at center, Enoch Vamahi at right guard, and Tegra Shaballah. Now, I've heard Enoch's a really good kid, man, but after that Cotton Bowl and the Michigan game the year before, I don't like to talk negative about anybody who's trying their best at their job. But, okay, it doesn't concern me that he's on the 2 deep, because it's not really the 2 deep, because if the right guard got injured, they would swing somebody else in that position. But this guy's just not, he's not a Big Ten player, man. He's not a high-level Big Ten player. He's not an Ohio State player. He's just not. He's not physically gifted enough. It's not working out for him. And there were some people concerned that he was on the 2 deep, because technically that would be the 2 deep, but that's not how that would go. They would put Tegra in there or, Luke, whoever. But so Fryer currently still at right tackle. We'll see how long he can hold on to that. Carson Hinsman looked noticeably bigger, and he's really been definitely working out hard and eating well. And he is a guy who started as a freshman, came in a little undersized, and a lot of the battles that he lost, I think, were based on his size and his strength, or lack thereof. So he's got a ton of time to get bigger and stronger, and I still think he's going to end up factoring in the Ohio State offensive line in a big way in his career. I don't know if that's going to be this year. It's going to be a really odd case where a guy starts as a freshman, then goes back riding the pine, then comes back to start again. You don't see that often. That could be Carson's journey, and that would be really cool. But I'm definitely rooting for him, and he's definitely working his butt off. Another guy who looks noticeably bigger is Hero Canoe, defensive lineman. A really interesting cat from Germany, big personality, super smiley, happy guy. And this guy's got what it takes to be a star. If this dude can be as good as I think he can be, he's my breakout player candidate of the year. And if he can be as good as I think he can be, with the personality he's got, look out. Look out. Hero Canoe could be a star in Buckeye world. And let's move to linebacker. That's all I got on O-line. Linebacker, we got Cody Simon and C.J. Hicks lined up first team. Second team was Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese. They did a 3 linebacker set at one point with Cody Simon, Sonny Styles, and C.J. Hicks. Man, the wily vet with the 2 most talented guys maybe in the country at linebacker next to him on both sides. How amazing would that be? Oh, my gosh. That would just be beautiful. We've heard some commentary about Arvell Reese really standing out physically, just absolutely moving at a different level than everybody else. I think it was Jeremy Birmingham, guy whose opinion I think a lot of folks respect. He said that he just moves different than everybody else. He looked massive and long And if he ever gets it together, he could be a really awesome linebacker, which is great. Ohio kid out of Glenville. I love that. Gabe Powers, another Ohio kid who I love, was a top 100 recruit. Didn't hear anything about him yesterday. Don't know what's going on with him. So that wraps up day one. Now, hopefully Thursday we get some more information or video, defensive line, secondary, wide receivers, and we'll go over it all. Winning Iron Buckeye leaves from Coach Mick for dedication, determination, discipline, toughness, and leadership. We had Josh Fryer, Davis Nigbinosin, and Sonny Styles. Now, you can tell, I don't know what this award is really about, but this is just like, all right, who's busting their butt? And it is awesome to see Sonny Styles as one of the dudes getting recognized for just busting his butt. And it just, the future is so bright for this guy, and he's going to be so much fun. My favorite young player, Sonny Styles. A lot of yours too, I'm sure. Hometown guy, just awesome. In other news and notes, Corey Dennis, former Ohio State quarterback coach, just this last season, went to Utah as an analyst. Then he skipped town and went to Ole Miss as an analyst. Has now taken the quarterback coach job at Tulsa under Kevin Wilson. So, job number 4 in like a 3-month time span for Corey Dennis. And I've poked fun at him for the job switching. But I'm happy for him, and I wish him luck. And Kevin Wilson luck. Tulsa, let's go. Golden Hurricane. And I think Corey Dennis is a really good dude. So, rooting for him. Congratulations, Corey. And I had another thought on Chip Kelly's press conference that I just wanted to hit on at the end here. So, Chip Kelly said he was very happy to see Deshaun Foster get the head coaching position at UCLA. And Deshaun Foster, of course, former NFL running back for the Panthers, really good running back for a couple of years. He has been at UCLA for 10 years. He took over the head coaching position at UCLA. And Chip was very happy to see that, said he loved him. He was proud of him. Now, UCLA fans, at least the loud ones on the internet, were not happy to see him get that job. In fact, they were nasty. And they were so nasty that Deshaun Foster, in his press conference, where they were announcing his hiring, he's the guy, head coach of the UCLA Bruins, he essentially had to apologize. I mean, he had this apologetic tone to the fans in the biggest day of his life with tears in his eyes because of the passion that he has for that school. And he let them know, I can do this. I'm ready, with tears in his eyes. Now, someone who feels that kind of emotion towards a program, as someone that feels that kind of emotion towards a program, which I feel that towards Ohio State, and I know a lot of you do too. I can't imagine how he feels as a guy who's played there and coached there for 10 years. And I love college football. That press conference brought some emotion out of me, and I will be rooting for the success of Deshaun Foster at UCLA. And Chip Kelly saying that today and vouching for his character and saying that he loved him and he was proud of him, that just really reinforced that I'm feeling the right way on this. So let's go Bruins over there, unless you're facing somebody that, I don't know, somebody in scarlet and gray or something. And talking about scarlet and gray, the UCLA road blue, or the UCLA home blue uniforms, second best uniforms in college football. You know I'm a uniform guy. One day I'll do the rankings, but I'll let you in on number 2. The UCLA Blues are the second most beautiful uniform in all of college football. And that'll do it for today's long Juck on Bucks. My voice is hurting. I think we're at 50 minutes. My goodness. All episodes available on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Appreciate you guys a ton. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know who I'm wrong about. I'd love to hear it. Let's talk about it. That's what we do it for. And I will catch you soon. Talk to you later. Juck on Bucks out.